Welcome back to Pursuit of Passion. I'm Chef Jamie Bordonaro, here to share with you at home recipes, tips, and techniques to give you the tools to cook memorable meals for you and your loved ones. On today's episode, we have a beautiful, fresh black sea bass that we will be filleting and sauteing. This crispy skinned black sea bass we're going to serve with an aromatic, fragrant jasmine rice seasoned with scallions, cilantro, vegetable stock, and coconut milk. In addition, to enhance the overall experience of the dish, we have watermelon radish, which offers a nice piquancy, a little bit of bitterness that we're going to actually pickle. We'll do some fresh watermelon radish pickles to add some acidity to the plate. And lastly, an avocado and lime salad to cool things down a bit. Without further ado, let's cook. So we'll start with our beautiful black sea bass that we got from Gulf Shrimp down in Plantsville. Always delicious, fresh, and consistent quality seafood from Gulf Shrimp. We'll take our flexible fillet knife. It's a 7-inch flexible fillet knife that I got back in culinary school, and make sure we're nice and sharp and ready to go. Very important to have a clean, dry board and a clean, dry fish when filleting. We don't want to slip, and we want to make nice, even cuts. So we got the fish scaled and gutted. The scaling process tends to be very messy, and if you don't have the proper facility to take care of the scaling, it can be a bit of a kitchen nightmare, if you will. And we want some stress-free cooking here. I also took the liberty of using some kitchen shears to remove the spikes, the fins on the back end, the spinal end of the black sea bass, which if they poke you could potentially lead to an infection. So remember to do that before beginning your fillet process. So what I'm going to do on both sides of the fillet is go under the fin, around the collar, and down through. That'll be our opening cut. And again, our knife is nice and sharp, so we're just going to make a few slicing motions and go right down through. And I'm going to cut just a little bit into the belly side. Flip the fish over. Again, make sure we're nice and dry. Come under this fin over here, around the same cut. Also be careful, make sure you gently lift the belly portion here so that you don't slice through the meat. Down and through. Now I like to start on this side, going from tail towards the head. To me, it gives you the best leverage. And before starting the fillet, I'm going to just cut down the belly side here. This is where it kind of splits the two fillets, the top and bottom half, and it helps during the filleting process to make this initial cut. That's around this bone down here. And that'll guide your cut later on, you'll see. So black sea bass is part of the bass grouper snapper family, and it requires an up and over cut based on the bone structure. So we're going to go ahead and start at the tail end. I'm actually going to make a little incision here. That's the part that we'll trim out anyway, so it'll guide our cut. Putting my fingers under here so I don't slice through the meat, and I'm just going to make the initial cut in. We're going over this bone here as we slide the knife through. And now we're through, and I'm just going to check to see, make sure I'm not tearing up the meat at all. Going against the bone, keeping the knife angled slightly downward. Staying above that backbone. And just making gentle slicing motions all the way through until you get to the head. Then you can kind of peek in and you can feel where the bones are at so that you don't miss anything. And I'm just going to neatly slide the knife in where I need to so that we can continue the fillet. And from this point on, it's pretty much like peeling the meat away from the flesh rather than a slice. So if you think about it that way, it's a little bit easier to visualize how to make the cut. And once you get to that middle bone, this is what the up and over refers to. So we're just going to go ahead on the tail side, get over, point the knife tip downward, and cut through. And make a nice even cut. And that opens it up to make it a lot easier to go down the rest of the fish. Again, angling the knife downwards and over that spine. That's going to give you success as you continue. And then we're going to make a cut that's going to go through right where this fin area is to help separate it and allow us to see further in, going over the bone, right through. And then just finish the process very carefully, ensuring that you're lifting up the belly side. Almost a scraping motion as you go through. You can cut through some of those pin bones that we'll remove later with our fish tweezers. And once we're almost totally off, I'm going to go ahead and flip it to the other side. The reason I'm not removing this fillet yet is because it will actually allow us more leverage and better balance as we're filleting the opposite side. This time we're going to start towards the head. Make sure we're cutting above that central spine, keeping the knife angled down so we don't cut into the meat. Also remembering to hold that belly flap and just making some gentle incisions. And we'll check where we're at. We see the bones are beneath the cut, but we're not losing any meat, which is great. Continue the cut downwards towards the tail. Again, feel free to peek as you go just to make sure you're guiding everything properly. And I'm using mostly the tip at this point because it is such a small surface area to work with. And all the way down through, we're going to make another cut like we did on the other side with the tail, because this part down here, that little bit of meat there, would overcook once you try to saute your black bass. So we're going to do the same thing, slide the knife downward, start our up and over cut. That we're going to go up and over through the tail, angling the knife downward away from the meat towards the bone. And we're through. And then again, it's just repeating that process, the up and over, nicely sliding in that knife so that we get through and separate the fillet from the bones. And at this point, we're not going to hold back. We're going to actually end up removing our fillet from the bass. Now that we've already taken care of both sides. It's just some simple cuts right through these little pin bones that, again, we'll go ahead back over a little later on with our fish tweezers. There we go. One fillet nicely removed. Didn't lose any meat on the bone, you can see. Very nice. Flip it back over to finish the other side. And we're just cutting through these last pin bones. Nice and easily. Just go ahead and lift up your fillet to see what's attached. And one last cut. We'll do it. Now, if you want to make a nice fish stew, you can save the bones for that. For this recipe, we'll forego. What I'm going to do here is simply go underneath these pin bones and slide out this belly portion that would overcook, just following the contours so that I don't cut into the beautiful, delicate meat. Slide right through and cut it nice and cleanly. Again, you can save those scraps for a nice fish stew or as a base for a sauce. I'm feeling down for some pin bones, and I'll grab my fish tweezers. And you want to use some leverage by pressing the opposing two fingers gently downward, which will help to extract your pin bones cleanly without any meat of the fish left on. And we'll put those to the side so we don't mix it back into our fish. There's usually not too many on bass, and they're relatively simple to remove. One by one until it's cleanly removed. The next step will simply be to trim off this little tail end here that will overcook if we try to cook it. And you want to do it in the same angle that the head part of the fish is lying for symmetry and even cooking. And we'll flip it over to see where we're at, and you can see the skin is nicely, beautifully intact, which is great. That means it'll saute nice and evenly, and we can put our fillet to the side. Repeat the process with the other fillet, and you will have a beautiful dinner for two in no time. And while you're getting ready to fillet your fish, you can turn your oven to 375 degrees. We will end up finishing our crispy sauteed black bass in the oven to cook it just to medium rare to medium, depending on your preference, of course. Just grabbing the last of our pin bones, get those out of the way. All right, not too bad with this one. Again, trimming off the side is the same angle as the head is facing. We'll flip the fish around. Looks pretty good. Just going to gently trim this part right here so that the skin is evened up with our meat. Now, here's a cool trick that I learned back when I worked at La Bernardin in New York, a seafood restaurant with 3 Michelin stars. We will season our fish on both sides. This will draw moisture to the surface, and moisture is the #1 combatant or enemy to crispy skin when it comes to fish. So we let those rest for 10 to 15 minutes, then we'll start on the rice. However, I'll just go ahead and show you the process for extracting the most moisture or potential moisture from your bass. So take a paper towel. We have it seasoned. Now some of the moisture is drawn up to the surface. The back of your knife, we're going from head to tail, head to tail. And what you're doing is essentially squeegeeing out all that surface moisture from where the scales used to be. They tend to trap in a lot of moisture, and you can see on the paper towel where all that moisture is. We'll do that a few times. And then flip it around, dry everything up. Go ahead and go in the opposite direction just one time, and this will actually open up the area in which the scales were, and opening this area up to oxygen, to the air, will actually help to dry our fish out so that when the skin can be as dry as possible, which when we go to saute will lead to a crispy skin. That's it. So we squeegeed from head to tail and then reopened up those pores to take in the oxygen from tail to head. We'll do the same thing with the other fillet. Dry that skin, squeegee, squeegee, squeegee. Get rid of that moisture. Give it a nice dab with the paper towel and open up all those pores. Now the oxygen will do its job and dry out our fish so that when we go to saute it, it will be crispy, crispy, crispy. Let's go ahead and let that happen while we go on. Get rid of our gloves. Don't forget, gloves, the natural oils in your hands can damage and deteriorate your delicate fish, and we don't want to do that. Let's start cooking our aromatic jasmine rice. So, for the rice, we have basmati rice, a long grain rice that's really great for aromatic preparations. Becomes nice and fluffy and delicious. And we'll just simply begin with a little bit of oil. Sweat our scallions. I used here the bottoms of scallions. The tops are usually great for garnish. The bottoms, I think, have the most pungent, aromatic allium flavor to it. So we'll go ahead, add those to some oil over medium heat. Add a layer of seasoning in the form of kosher salt. I don't use pepper with fish. It tends to overpower, and since we have such beautiful fresh fish today from Gulf shrimp, I certainly don't want to make the mistake of overpowering. I'm going to add in the cilantro right away, a good amount of cilantro there. So that was 1 bunch of scallion bottoms sliced, along with 1 bunch of cilantro that's been chopped. Once those sweat down and are aromatic, all the moisture starts to become released, we can go ahead and add in our vegetable stock, along with our coconut milk. The coconut milk will not only add a nice cooling sensation to the preparation, to the bass, but it also serves to kind of complement all the flavor profiles that we're doing today. It's almost a little bit Thai inspired. Definitely cuisines in the Asian continent, if you will, although that's quite broad to say. I mean, there's so much subtlety and nuance and distinctive styles when you go from country to country. I mean, Japanese cuisine, Chinese cuisine, Korean. But I think we're in the ballpark of some elements that they share. So once this is up to a simmer, we can add in our jasmine rice. That's 1 cup of rice, long grain rice. You can use jasmine or basmati, to 1 cup each of the vegetable stock and coconut milk. So that's a 2-to-1 ratio of liquid to rice. We'll bring that to a simmer and let that simmer for about 20 to 30 minutes. Then we'll check it with a fork, make sure it's nice, fluffy, delicious. We'll set that aside and get a pan nice and hot. For our crispy bass. Clean up our workstation so that we're nice and tidy, ready to move on. Let's go ahead with our watermelon radish. First, we'll clean off our board. Watermelon radish, obviously part of the radish family. Really, really delicious, vibrant. And why is it called watermelon, you ask? On the inside, you can see the green and red, vivid pink ruby contrast there that reminds you of what else? Watermelon. So I like to top and tail it. And then we'll go ahead and peel it kind of like a citrus. You can use a vegetable peeler, but I like to remove some of the inner meat, if you will, of the vegetable and just showcase that beautiful ruby red watermelon-esque fluorescence. And over here, I have a pickling liquid. This is rice wine vinegar. So it's 1 cup rice wine vinegar, half a cup of water. The water kind of tones things down and allows the ingredients to meld together without becoming overwhelming. This is 2 tablespoons of sugar to add a nice balance so that it's not overwhelmingly acidic on the palate, and 1 large tablespoon of kosher salt. We'll give that a quick stir, let that come up to a simmer. In the meantime, we'll go ahead and finish cutting our beautiful watermelon radish. This one's nice and vibrant. That's a good sign that it's in peak season. And will be absolutely flavorful. So, what we're going to do for our pickles is create thin shaved slices that I'll then square up a little bit using a mandolin, as you've seen before. Make sure everything's adjusted nice and tight. And we're going for, I'd say, about 1/8 of an inch thick. Again, tuck your fingers upward. Make sure that the vegetable that you're slicing is nice and secure. Check our slices out. They're a good thickness. That'll pickle nicely without overcooking so that it becomes mush, but it'll actually be vibrant and have a nice crisp snap to it. So we'll do a few of those. And then I'll show you how we go ahead and trim them up to make them look nice and pretty for the plate. Although certainly you have no obligation at all to gussy it up. I'll just stack the pieces up nicely, and I really want to showcase that vibrant red color. Just basically squaring off the radish, right like that. And then I'm going to go down in a diagonal fashion to create these beautiful little triangles. That will be a beautiful garnish for our finished dish. And we can just scatter them into our pickling liquid once it's up to a simmer and allow that to cook through. Next up, it's time to saute that beautiful black bass. So we want a medium-sized saute pan, one that's appropriate for the size of our fillets. We'll make sure they're nice and dry. Again, with the addition of another paper towel treatment. They've already been seasoned, so we're okay with salt. Add in our vegetable oil or canola oil. And you want just enough to coat the bottom of the pan. And you certainly want it to be just about to the point of smoking. And once we put them in the pan, when it's nice and hot, you'll see they'll want to curl upwards just naturally based on their structure. And I'll show you what we're going to do to make sure that they evenly conduct heat with our oil and with our pan. It's a little more oil than you'd use per se for instance, salmon. Salmon has a subcutaneous fat that will allow it to saute much easier. These can be a little finicky since the skin is so thin, but we're going to dry it off one last time and get it into the pan. That sizzle is a good sign. I'm just going to trim off some of this tail piece here to make sure not only it fits into the pan, but also that the smaller piece does not overcook. There we go, and you can see them curling up the instant they hit the pan. That's telling us right now that we need to apply a little bit of pressure to the surface of the fish. I'm using this flat spatula that covers the length of the fish, and I'm going to gently press the body of the fish down onto the pan. Don't put too much pressure, that will end up breaking the skin, tearing it, and once you break through that skin, that allows that hot oil to actually touch the delicate meat of the fish, which would dry it out quickly and potentially burn it. So all we're doing here, we want to really encourage the drying out of that skin and the browning. And I'm just gently pressing. And then we're going to check to see if they come from the pan. So now that this one is almost ready to come off, we're just going to give it a little encouragement. Being careful not to tear the skin so that it comes off. This one, I'm going to gently press a little bit longer. And it should release with, as I said, a little encouragement. If not, it just needs to cook a little more. We'll let it get nice color. And we'll go from this side. It seems to be browning a bit quicker. So just go ahead, nice and gently go underneath the fillet to try and encourage it from sticking to the pan. And once you check the side of your fish and you can see some golden brown developing, you can go ahead and remove some of the oil from the pan and place it into your 375-degree oven. It should take about 5 to 6 minutes. In the meantime, I'll show you how we're going to put together a quick avocado salad that will be wonderful for our bass. So, I have some limes that I've segmented. The best way to get the juice from the lime is actually not in half unless you have a motorized juicer, but cutting them in segments. With our avocado, we'll go straight down the middle. And you want it to be not overripe so that it's a little too mushy to work with, but firm enough that it is easy to dice. Get rid of our pit. There we go. Being careful not to squeeze towards the blade end, but simply pinching gently, safety first. And we can use a spoon to extract the avocado meat nice and quickly, just like that, like so. And it's very important we get some lime right on it so it doesn't oxidize, because they oxidize very quickly, as many of you may know. This not only prevents the oxidation, but it also adds a ton of delicious lime flavor to the preparation. All right, wonderful. Now we'll just simply cut it into sort of a medium dice. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but bite-sized pieces to create a potato salad-like ambiance, if you will. Just like that. We're going to add some extra virgin olive oil, which will add a ton of flavor. Not to mention we have healthy fats going on. That's really great. Our extra virgin olive oil as well as the avocado. Put our limes to the side. Clean up our board a little bit and get ready for plating. We have some extra fresh cilantro garnish. Our beautiful crispy skinned black bass that's nicely crisp and seared. In addition, our fragrant aromatic scallion cilantro coconut milk rice, which I'm going to simply fluff up a little bit, and we can go ahead and plate. Obviously, the plating is up to you and your stylistic preference. I'm going to add in some more cilantro to our salad. That'll be a nice vibrant kick to place aside our bass. And we'll go ahead and put in a nice bed of the rice. And also carries on those flavors to carry out a contiguous theme throughout the dish. And let's go on with our beautiful bass. And honestly, with this plate up, I think, to me anyways, it really would be great, one fillet per portion. I think that's plenty of food, and it's going to be delicious. Your pickles, you can feel free to place wherever you feel. It'll add acidity to each part that you put it on, and of course, a vibrant pop to the plate. Some more cilantro over the top, and there you have it. Crispy black bass over scented jasmine rice, pickled watermelon radish, avocado salad, fresh lime. I hope I've inspired you to try your hand at filleting and sautéing a beautiful black sea bass. Please enjoy the vibrant flavors of this dish and enjoy creating memorable meals for you and your loved ones. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please be well on your pursuit of passion.